All right, a happy Saturday. Hopefully, everyone is doing great out there, enjoying your weekend. We are going to do a trade guide video of the Golden State Warriors. I figured we would get a bunch of these teams done that are playing on the ESPN games. So we've got Philadelphia, Denver, Miami, pre and post Terry Rozier, New York. Lakers are already done. Trade guides are out on ESPN.com, so you can go read all about the Golden State Warriors. I was hesitant as far as, based on everything that happened in Golden State with them losing their their assistant coach. I've gone through that before with one of our assistant coaches when I was in New Jersey. Had a heart attack right before practice and was basically had to be brought back to life. And it is a traumatic. It's a beyond traumatic experience here. So my condolences to Golden State, and been hesitant as far as to talk about them. And I know that I guess we all have to move on here. But Golden State for me is interesting. They had the 1-point loss to Sacramento. Feels like every one of those games is kind of either, I guess it's a 1-point game. Out of the play-in right now. A lot of roster decisions that are going to have to be either made by February 8th, which is the trade deadline, or we get into the offseason with Golden State. Remove Steph Curry from any conversation, but as far as everything else, as far as what that roster is, right now, 4 or 5 games below 500. Would really need to start making up some serious ground as far as from a play-in standpoint, and that's kind of the best case scenario as far as where we see this Golden State team. And so there's three big questions here, and I'm really just kind of looking at our trade guide here. How much is Joe Lacob, their owner, willing to spend into the future? They've spent over $600 million in luxury tax penalties in the last 6 or 7 years. You can justify it when it's a championship roster. This is not a championship roster right now. Does it change? Does that change next year with another year of Kuminga and Podziemski? You still have Klay and Green. Maybe Wiggins regroups and figure out what you do with Klay. That maybe. I don't see that. Guys get older, right? Father time never loses, I guess, unless you're LeBron James here. So how much is ownership willing to spend when we get into right now at the deadline, where their payroll is, basically have close to $400 million in salary and luxury tax penalties? That's one question. Second question is, and the answer to this is no. Is the roster good enough to be pushed over the top by a one-year star rental, right? There's no one-year star rentals out there. There's no Kawhi Leonard of 2018 out there to go out and get. You weren't going to pay $240 million for Pascal Siakam. It makes no sense as far as to go out and trade for Zach LaVine, for example. So there is no one all-star that will push this roster over the top. And then the third question basically is, what is the plan for the future here? Because what happens is that next year, okay, this is next year, Golden State has $144 million in salary. That does not include the $30 million non-guaranteed contract of Chris Paul, who's been out right now, but certainly is a trade asset based on the acquiring team has no financial obligations to him for next year. Okay, the luxury tax is projected at 172. The first apron is at 179.4, and the second apron is at 190. So when you look at $144 million in salary, and then you add Chris Paul to that, is at 174, and that does not include re-signing Klay Thompson. So you bring back Klay Thompson, even at a discount of, let's say, $26 million, you are now a second apron team. What does a second apron team means? It means that going forward, you are not allowed to go out and aggregate money in a deal. You can't trade cash in a deal. Your pick in 2032, if you finish next year in the apron, second apron, becomes frozen. There's all these different roster ramifications here. That's why, for me, there's two people that we circle as far as who to keep an eye on. The first person is certainly Chris Paul, who's been out with the hand injury. He's got that $30 million contract. What do you attach to that to go out and maybe get a player? But here's the thing. Is ownership willing to take back money that extends into next year? Okay? Is ownership willing to go out and get a $30 million player that has money left on his contract for next year? Like a couple of months ago, we said, oh, Paul and Kuminga for Siakam. Like, that makes sense. And yeah, I mean, maybe from a basketball standpoint, but then you would have to go out and pay Siakam that money here. The second player is Andrew Wiggins, who's got 3 years and $85 million left on his contract after this year. Okay? Wiggins has not been good this year. We all know that. We don't need to go through an analytics lesson as far as what happens with Wiggins. Is Golden State comfortable? And I haven't even identified a team yet, and no team has really raised their hand and say, yeah, we'd love to have Andrew Wiggins. Would Golden State find a taker for him in a pure salary dump? So what does a pure salary dump mean? Wiggins for Alec Burks and Monty Morris, two guys on expiring contracts. Wiggins and Gary Payton for Gordon Hayward and something else. So you're basically getting off your books that $24 to $25 million contract here. Everything I'm talking about is like, this is not roses, right? This is not how to fix the Golden State Warriors. It's basically how to get them out of financial hell and try to give them a path for next season where maybe they have some more flexibility, whether it be in trades or whether it be maybe one of their exceptions is available here, or maybe it gives them more flexibility to bring back Klay Thompson or rely more on their younger players, Kuminga and Moody, who are going to be extension eligible this upcoming offseason here. That's why there's no magic wand or silver bullet out there to all of a sudden improve this roster right now. And then the third thing with Golden State is, what do you do about Klay Thompson here? Okay? Now, if this team continuously is a play-in team at best, and you are not comfortable paying Klay Thompson $30 million or $35 or whatever the number he sees him at, I think he's in that $30 million range still. I don't think he's a $40 million player. You go to Klay Thompson on before the deadline and say, you know what? We want you to go out and win a championship. We're not winning a championship here, right? We want you to go out and have another chance of winning a championship, and we're going to go look at trade markets. And I said this in the Philadelphia video. If that ever became the case and Klay Thompson ever became available, and there's no indication that he is, if I was Philadelphia, I would give up 2 number ones for Klay Thompson, even if it meant it was a rental for 4 months, because I think he can go out and win you a championship. I would, certainly one good one, and then that makes it where Golden State has to say, well, does it make sense? And dynasties are hard when you're breaking up dynasties. Nothing ever ends well, right? Nothing ever ends. It didn't end well in Chicago with the Bulls dynasty. San Antonio was a little bit different because they kind of hung around in that 8th spot or the play-in spot. For a while because you still had Murray and White, and then you got DeRozan here, but that was past, the Duncan, Parker, Ginobili era. But dynasties do not end well. And then the other one is that you start taking takers for Draymond, who's got, 4 years, 100, including this year, 4 years, $100 million. So there's all these different options here, but what you have to do in Golden State is basically set yourself up for 2024-25. If you don't think Chris Paul is going to be on the roster, do you move him at the deadline or do you wait into the offseason? Because here's the thing. With the Chris Paul contract, and we saw it with Phoenix when he was on that roster, whatever the amount that's guaranteed is the amount that's used in a trade. So if Chris Paul's contract is 0 guaranteed, that is the money that is used in a trade. So there's really no value. You're not trading a $30 million player for a $30 million player. There's no value in that contract unless you amend the current deal. Certainly with Klay, I mentioned, as far as he's going to be a free agent, what do you do about him going into the offseason? Because even if you waived Chris Paul, if you just said, you know what, we're going to waive Chris Paul, we can't find a taker, you sign Klay, you're going to be a luxury tax team. Now, you might not be a second apron team because you're still $16 million below, and depending on what Klay's number is, but you're still going to be in that tax bracket there because of Wiggins and Steph Curry, who's eligible this offseason for an extension for one more year. But if it was me in Golden State, and I know it's hard to kind of navigate the Andrew Wiggins contract, which I thought at the time was good value, I would be looking to dump that Wiggins contract just to open up a ton of flexibility here. Let's look at what they have, and that's one of the trades we like to. $687 million in penalties they've paid, and here, Joe Lacob said it. Hey, we're going to win no matter what. This is when the CBA came out. We're going to win no matter what. I don't care what the rules are. We're going to figure out a way to do it. That's what good organizations do, and there's still time to figure that out. This is Mike Dunleavy Jr.'s first trade deadline. He worked for Bob Myers for a long time, but this is his first go around it, and we saw him did the Jordan Poole, who one team told me about a week ago they think is the worst contract in the NBA. So they're fortunate they're off that contract. Certainly did the Chris Paul trade. Trade I would like to see Wiggins and Corey Joseph to Detroit for Alec Burks and Monty Morris. Just get off that money here. They've got $7 million in cash to send out. This might be the last time they could use it. They've got two exceptions at 2-3 and 1-3. 41.7 over the tax, a franchise and league record, $186 million tax penalty. Draymond and Curry have trade bonuses. Curry, Thompson, Green have trade bonuses. Draymond's is $9 million. Klay's $2.5. They can't sign a buyout player if the salary is more than $12.4. They've got a first that's going to Portland. That's top 4 protected. That likely conveys. The first time they can trade a first is 2 years after that conveys. So the earliest is 26. So they have 2 firsts they can trade, 26 and 28. They owe Washington a top 20 protected in 2030. They can swap rights in 27, 28, 29, and 30 if it's in the top 20. They got 3 second-round picks. So it's not one of these fun and rosy trade deadline guides that everyone's going to be looking forward to. Like, oh, how do we fix Golden State? No. How do you fix it where you have some financial freedom going into next year? And as I said, it starts with Andrew Wiggins, and then it's going to have those hard conversations when it comes down to Klay Thompson. If this team continuously keeps on having a tough time with that word, hangs around that play-in and are out there, hey, a week and a half from now, they could be 6 games out of the 10th spot, for example. And do you have that hard conversation with Klay Thompson and say, hey, we're not winning a championship here, and we're not sure what the number is going to be to bring you back? You're going to have that conversation here. So have a great Saturday. Enjoy the games, and we will talk soon. How do I pull up long range? Jimmy with the heat, I'm on fire. It's NBA on ESPN.